Have you ever stopped and wondered why so many men crave one very specific act of intimacy? Why they love to kiss you down there? For some women, even hearing that question feels shocking or uncomfortable. But for countless men, this isn't just a passing curiosity. It's a deep desire that carries meaning far beyond physical pleasure. And the truth is, women over 50 are often the ones who would benefit most from understanding it. Hello, I'm Dr. Jocelyn, MD, board-certified obstetrician gynecologist with over 2 decades of experience guiding women through menopause, hormone changes, and intimate health after midlife. I've walked with thousands of women who carried quiet doubts, shame, or unanswered questions about intimacy. My mission is simple: to give you clear, compassionate, medically accurate guidance so you can live with confidence and joy at every stage of life. Here's the paradox that surprises many of my patients. Women assume men want oral intimacy purely for their own satisfaction, but science, psychology, and decades of relationship counseling tell a different story. Men often pursue this not only for themselves, but as a way to awaken you, to connect with you on a level words can't reach. In this video, I'll explain exactly why men love to kiss you there, how it benefits your body and your relationship after 50, and why embracing it may transform the way you see yourself as a woman. And stay with me until the end because I'll reveal the #1 mistake women make that turns this act into discomfort, and the simple shift that can make it deeply pleasurable at any age. Before we begin, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another conversation about women's health, intimacy, and confidence after 50. And if this topic speaks to you, just type 1 in the comments to let me know. If it doesn't, type 0 so I can keep improving these videos for you. Now, let's step into the heart of today's topic. Why do men truly love this act? Many women assume it's only about a man's desire, but the reality is far more meaningful. It's not just lust, it's devotion, connection, and a powerful way of giving. 1. The hidden desire, why men truly love it. When I sit down with women in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, one of the questions I hear most often is whispered, almost as if it's a secret. Doctor, why does my husband love to kiss me down there so much? I don't understand it. Some women say it with embarrassment, others with curiosity, and a few even with frustration. And I always smile gently because the answer is far deeper than many of us were ever taught to believe. Yes, men feel desire. But this act is not only about lust. For many men, it is about devotion. When he chooses to kiss you there, he is showing you that he wants to give rather than just receive. He wants to see you lose yourself in pleasure, to know that he was the one who unlocked something inside of you. That moment of surrender when your body softens, your breath changes, and your eyes close gives him an emotional satisfaction words cannot capture. It is his way of saying, "You are beautiful. You still excite me. I want to give you joy." Biologically, he knows, even if he doesn't have the scientific language for it, that this part of your body is filled with more nerve endings than almost anywhere else. He senses the power hidden there, and he wants to touch it, explore it, bring it alive. And emotionally, it connects him to you in a way that is primal, tender, and deeply masculine all at once. Understanding this truth is the first step in letting go of shame and beginning to see his desire as an expression of love. But the story doesn't end here. Because if this is about devotion, then we must also ask, what does it mean for the bond between you and him when he expresses that devotion in such an intimate way? 2. The emotional bond behind the act. I remember a patient of mine, a woman in her late 60s, who leaned in during one of our private consultations. She looked almost embarrassed, and she said, "Doctor, I don't understand why my husband still insists on this at his age. What could he possibly get out of it?" I could see in her eyes that she wasn't just asking about the act itself, but about the meaning behind it. And this is where so many women miss the deeper truth. For men, kissing you there is not only about stimulation, it is about connection. Think about what it really means when a man puts his mouth, his breath, his entire attention on your most private, vulnerable place. That is not rejection, that is reverence. To him, it is a way of saying, "I accept every part of you. I want to be closer than close." And when he sees you relax, when he feels your body respond, there is an emotional bond that forms. It tells him without words that he matters to you, that his ability to bring you pleasure is real and valued. I have witnessed couples in their 70s rediscover passion because of this very act. The husband felt useful and powerful again, not because of penetration or stamina, but because he could still create joy for his wife. And the wife, who once felt shy and uncertain, realized that her husband's desire wasn't to expose her flaws, it was to embrace her fully. This emotional bond is why oral intimacy can be so profound later in life. But as meaningful as it is, many women still struggle with their own confidence, and that struggle can become the biggest barrier of all. So the real question becomes, what happens when a woman no longer feels sure about her body, and how can she reclaim that confidence? 3. The confidence struggle for women over 50. One of the most tender conversations I often have in my office is when a woman, usually in her 50s or 60s, lowers her voice and admits, "Doctor, I don't feel comfortable letting him go there anymore. My body isn't the same. I'm worried he'll notice." You can hear the pain in those words. It's not just about sex. It's about the fear that aging has taken away her beauty, her worth, her ability to be desired. I always pause in these moments because I know how heavy that burden feels, and I want her to see herself through gentler eyes. Menopause brings changes, thinning tissues, dryness, shifting hormones, even changes in scent or appearance. For many women, these things create a wall of self-consciousness. They pull away not because they don't long for closeness, but because they're afraid of being judged. Yet, when I speak with their husbands, the truth is almost always the opposite. He is not analyzing her body like a critic. He is seeing his partner, the woman he loves, the person who still excites him. What he wants is not perfection. He wants connection. The heartbreaking part is how often women deny themselves pleasure because they let shame speak louder than love. And every time they say no, even softly, even with good intentions, what their partner feels is rejection. Over time, this builds distance where closeness could have been. But here is the beautiful shift. When a woman learns to trust that she is still desirable, when she allows herself to receive, the entire dynamic changes. Confidence is not about being flawless. It's about believing you are worthy of intimacy just as you are. And once you step into that truth, something else begins to happen. You discover that this act is not only good for your relationship, it can actually be good for your health. And that's where the story takes an even more surprising turn. 4. The physical benefits few women realize. Not long ago, I sat across from a woman in her early 70s who had almost given up on intimacy. She told me, "Doctor, sex just feels uncomfortable now. I thought that part of my life was over." Her shoulders dropped as if she had surrendered to the idea that pleasure was something reserved for her younger self. Then, with a mix of curiosity and doubt, she asked if there was any way her body could still respond. What she didn't realize is that one of the very things she hesitated to allow, oral intimacy, was one of the best remedies for the challenges she faced. Here's what many women never hear. Oral stimulation doesn't just create pleasure. It encourages the body to heal itself. The increase in blood flow nourishes the tissues, improving sensitivity and resilience, even in a postmenopausal body. The moisture it generates combats dryness in a way that no store-bought lubricant ever truly can, because it's your body's own natural response. Beyond that, the release of oxytocin and endorphins lowers stress, eases tension, and even helps you sleep more soundly. It is no exaggeration to say that what feels like an act of passion is also a form of medicine for the body and soul. For couples, these benefits ripple outward. Women who embrace oral intimacy often find they laugh more, sleep better, and even feel more alive during the day. And their partners feel renewed purpose because they can still bring joy in ways that matter deeply. But as powerful as these benefits are, there remains a silent barrier, one that is not physical at all, but rooted in culture, upbringing, and long-held beliefs. And unless that barrier is broken, many women will never allow themselves to experience what could change their lives. 5. Overcoming shame and cultural barriers. I'll never forget a woman who came to me after watching one of my lectures. She was in her late 60s, elegant in every way, but when she spoke about intimacy, her face tightened with shame. She said, "Doctor, I was raised to believe that anything beyond regular intercourse is dirty. My husband has asked me for years, but I just can't bring myself to allow it." You could hear the weight of generations in her words, voices of mothers, teachers, even church leaders who told women their bodies were something to hide rather than celebrate. She wasn't rejecting her husband. She was battling the echoes of a culture that had silenced her desires. This is more common than most women realize. Many grew up in a time when words like clitoris or oral sex were never spoken aloud. Pleasure was not something discussed, much less encouraged. And yet, when I gently explained to her that the intimate area is not dirty, but one of the most extraordinary and sensitive parts of her body, she began to soften. What she thought was shameful was in fact sacred. What she feared was improper was in truth an invitation to deeper love. I reminded her that hygiene and self-care matter, yes, but shame has no place in intimacy. The body she carried was not flawed or filthy. It was beautiful, worthy, and designed for closeness. For the first time in decades, she looked relieved, almost as if a chain had been broken. Letting go of shame is not just about saying yes to him, it's about saying yes to yourself. And once that door opens, the next step is learning how to prepare both body and mind so that the experience feels safe, comfortable, and deeply pleasurable. That preparation is where the transformation truly begins. 6. Preparing yourself for the experience. I remember speaking with a woman in her early 60s who confided, "Doctor, I worry that if I let him go there, he'll notice every flaw. What if I'm not clean enough? What if I smell wrong?" Her questions were whispered, but they carried the same fear I've heard from countless women. The fear of being unprepared, of not presenting themselves in the right way. And yet the truth I shared with her is simple. Preparation is less about perfection and more about peace of mind. Taking a shower, choosing a gentle cleanser, trimming or grooming if you wish, and creating a comfortable space are not about making yourself flawless. They are acts of love for yourself and for your partner. When your body feels fresh, your mind relaxes. When your space feels private and calm, your heart opens more fully. And that, more than anything else, allows pleasure to flow. I've often told my patients it's not about masking who you are. It's about showing up as the best, most confident version of yourself. For some women, even small touches like lighting a candle or using a mild natural fragrance help shift the experience from anxiety to intimacy. What matters most is that you feel safe, comfortable, and ready to receive. Because when you feel prepared, the walls of worry come down, and what remains is connection. Preparation, in truth, is an invitation. It tells your partner that you value the moment enough to make it special. And when both partners feel honored, intimacy stops being just physical. It becomes emotional, even spiritual. But once you are prepared, there is still one final powerful truth to embrace. The secret that transforms this act from something good into something unforgettable. And that is where we are headed next. 7. The secret to making it unforgettable. One of the most beautiful truths I've witnessed in my years of practice is that pleasure is not created by technique alone. It is born in presence. I once had a patient, a woman in her late 50s, who told me she dreaded intimacy because her husband seemed rushed, almost mechanical. "It feels like he's just trying to finish," she confessed. But when I later spoke with couples who described the opposite, where every kiss, every touch was slow and intentional, the word they used was not just pleasure, but magic. The secret lies in letting go of performance and leaning into connection. When a man takes his time, listens to her breath, responds to her body, and treats the act not as a duty but as a gift, everything changes. The intimacy deepens, the pleasure multiplies, and trust blossoms. For women over 50, this becomes even more important because the body's rhythms may be slower, but the heart and mind are often more open than ever before. Slowness allows desire to unfold naturally, without pressure. I tell my patients, savor it. Don't think of oral intimacy as a shortcut or a chore. Think of it as an exploration, a chance to celebrate a body that has carried you through decades of life. That shift in perspective transforms the experience from something ordinary into something extraordinary. And here is where it all comes together. Because once you understand the science, release the shame, prepare yourself, and allow the moment to unfold with intention, you begin to see intimacy not as something you outgrow, but as something that grows richer with age. And in the conclusion, I'll share how this simple shift can redefine the way you experience love for the rest of your life. 8. Intimacy as a lifelong gift. I once met a couple in their late 70s who completely changed how I think about intimacy in later life. They had been married for over 50 years, and when I asked what kept their bond alive, the wife smiled softly and said, "We never stopped being curious with each other." There was a tenderness in her voice that revealed something deeper than just physical closeness. For them, intimacy wasn't about youth, beauty, or performance. It was about discovery, about cherishing each other in new ways, even after decades together. This is the secret so many women overlook. Intimacy is not a chapter that ends when menopause arrives, nor is it something you grow out of with age. It is a language that evolves with you, becoming richer, deeper, and more meaningful the longer you allow it to flourish. Oral intimacy in particular has a unique power to remind couples that passion is not reserved for the young. It is available to anyone who dares to embrace vulnerability, to release shame, and to step into joy no matter what number shows on their birthday cake. As a physician, I've seen how couples who nurture intimacy later in life are not only happier, but often healthier, less lonely, less anxious, more connected to the world around them. And as a woman, I believe this is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves, the permission to keep love alive in all its forms. Because when you realize that intimacy is not bound by age, but expanded by it, you begin to see that the best years of passion might still be ahead of you. And in the closing message, I'll share how to take everything we've explored today and turn it into a lasting source of joy for your body, your heart, and your relationship. 9. Communication, the key that unlocks everything. I once counseled a woman in her mid-60s who had quietly avoided oral intimacy for years. Her husband never pressured her, but the silence between them grew heavy. She admitted to me, "Doctor, I thought if I said nothing it would just fade away." But it didn't. Instead, the lack of conversation created distance where closeness used to live. What she didn't realize was that the simple act of speaking her fears out loud could have transformed their relationship. Communication is the bridge between what we fear and what we desire. When a woman shares her worries about cleanliness, about aging, about whether she is still attractive, she opens the door for reassurance. And when a man listens with patience and responds with love instead of judgment, the connection deepens in ways no physical act alone can achieve. It's not about negotiating a performance, it's about creating safety. Safety to say yes, safety to say no, and safety to explore together without shame. Too often, couples avoid these conversations because they believe intimacy should be instinctive. But in truth, the most fulfilling intimacy is intentional. It grows when both partners are brave enough to voice their needs and tender enough to honor each other's boundaries. This is how passion doesn't just survive over time, it evolves. And here is the beautiful irony. When you dare to talk openly, the fear you thought would break the moment often becomes the very thing that strengthens it. Couples rediscover each other, not as strangers, but as lifelong partners still capable of new beginnings. But even with honest communication, there's one last piece to consider: the mindset that determines whether all these lessons will take root or fade away. And that final piece may surprise you. 10. Mindset, choosing intimacy at any age. I once spoke with a woman in her 70s who sighed as she told me, "Doctor, maybe this part of life just isn't meant for me anymore." Her words carried the weight of resignation, the quiet acceptance that pleasure and intimacy were chapters already closed. But I looked at her and gently said, "The truth is, intimacy doesn't leave us. We choose whether to keep it alive." Her eyes widened as if no one had ever told her she still had that choice. Mindset is everything. When you see intimacy as something only for the young, you shut the door before you even give yourself permission to enter. But when you view it as a gift that grows richer with age, you reclaim not only your sexuality, but also your sense of aliveness. A positive mindset allows you to embrace your body as it is, not as it once was. It lets you see wrinkles not as flaws, but as maps of love and experience. And it reminds you that desire is not measured in years. It is measured in openness. Couples who thrive later in life are not the ones with perfect bodies or flawless technique. They are the ones who choose every day to lean into love rather than away from it. They choose curiosity over shame, tenderness over fear, and presence over performance. That choice begins in the mind long before it shows in the body. Because when you believe intimacy still belongs to you, everything else, desire, connection, even joy, follows naturally. And in the conclusion, I'll share how all these truths come together into one powerful message, a reminder that love in its deepest form is never limited by age. 11. Conclusion. Embracing intimacy without age limits. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want you to pause for a moment and remember everything we've explored together. We began by uncovering why men are drawn to kiss down there, not as an act of selfishness, but as a way to express love, passion, and devotion. We looked at how this act can bring pleasure to both partners, break through fears of aging, and even provide real physical benefits like increased blood flow, reduced dryness, and deeper relaxation. We talked about the cultural walls of shame that so many women have carried silently for decades, and how releasing those old beliefs can set you free to enjoy your body fully again. We spoke about preparation, confidence, communication, and the mindset that ultimately determines whether intimacy fades or flourishes with time. And woven through it all was a single message. Intimacy is not about youth, beauty, or performance. It is about connection. It is about allowing yourself to be loved, cherished, and celebrated exactly as you are today. Not as you once were, but as the woman you have become after a lifetime of growth. I've seen women who thought their intimate life was over rediscover passion in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. I've seen couples grow closer in ways they never imagined, simply because they chose to speak honestly, prepare lovingly, and open themselves to the joy of being known. That possibility is waiting for you too. So as you carry these thoughts with you, remember this: love does not fade with age, it deepens. Intimacy is not something you leave behind. It's something you can choose again and again at any stage of life. And perhaps the most beautiful truth of all is this: the best years of passion may not be behind you, but still ahead.